Hi there, traders. This is Brad Gilbert with the FX Market Insight for the 19th of November. All right, it's time to tune up your charts. The trading week is kicked off. We're not quite in the middle of the Asian session, but we're not far off it. Now, just having a look at the charts, right? All you're trying to do is, with your technical analysis, is really tune up, see what the currencies have done on Friday, and see where the key levels are. Now, there's been no major breaks of levels, but we can see there's a clear situation where we can see, let me just widen out dollar yen here. You'll see the general price action here on the hourly charts in particular. This is where you can really isolate and try and find out what's happening. The US dollar has taken a little bit of a nosedive. Okay, dollar Swiss, dollar yen, the Aussie rallied, Kiwi rallied. I mean, sterling with Brexit going on, it has rallied, but it wasn't as clear cut as the other pairs. And same with dollar CAD. It's caught up in all sorts of bit of a mess with oil, CAD fundamentals conflicting with the US dollar, etc. But the dollar index, you can see also very clearly where it's moved as well. So to me, you look at, okay, you're trying to isolate why did the US dollar come off somewhat? Now, it's quite easy. If you have something like Reuters, you can come over and actually sort of have a quick look, and you'll find, usually at the top of the pops here, an article of what was going on. So the dollar falls as Fed officials ring note of caution. Now, this is really important. This is where your understanding of the fundamentals really comes, or should shine through. Now, there's a couple of officials here who have, Fed officials, I should say, who have sort of questioned global growth. Now, there's two parts to this. Richard Clarida, right? He's the Fed vice chairman, so it's very important. He's a voting member. He says he saw some evidence that global growth was cooling. Now, that's by no way like a very bearish sentiment or dovish sentiment. It's just saying, we've seen some evidence. Now, we had the Dallas Federal Reserve President Robert Kaplan coming out and saying global growth will be facing a headwind, all these sorts of things. So they're not saying it's off, but two Fed officials sort of erring the side of caution. Now, this is not uncommon. Now, the Fed officials who don't have a vote, they have less weighting. But Clarida does. He's a voting member, right? So when it comes to seeing what he's got to say, this is where the bankers will be thinking, well, why is he saying that against the chairman? Now, this is, as I said, not uncommon. What you get is generally, if they want to put out into the market a slight shift in sentiment from the central bank, they will get the vice chair to do it, or someone in the voting member, but not the overall chairman or the president, right? So the idea is he keeps his reputation clean. They throw out one of the other guys and get them to sort of put it into the market. So that's where the sentiment for a lot of the pairs has really come from. So the other Fed officials, so Chicago Federal President Charles Evans, he's also basically saying, economic risks, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where the political side comes in for the non-voting members. But the voting members is very important. So when we come back and have a look at the major currency pairs, you're sort of looking at the pairs and thinking, well, what's going on? Well, we know there's Brexit is jamming away, but we've also had a slight shift in sentiment here from the Fed. And that's, put the US dollar not really under serious pressure, but just taking, the foot off the upside, put it that way. So you've got dollar yen just drifting lower, dollar Swiss, as I said, Aussie, Kiwi both going higher, dollar CAD sideways, and to me, overall Brexit, sterling going sideways. Although Theresa May did get a little bit of support Friday and over the weekend from a few ministers, so sterling is making its way back probably to 130, but that's just going to continue to thrash about as Brexit continues. All right, so we can see what's going on now. One of the key things that you need to do from here is really piece together where the major action has been. So once again, if I just bring you back to, I just want to show you the dollar index itself, and look at the dollar yuan. Now, the dollar yuan, the offshore yuan, right? It's been banging away, but it's just drifted off again. So the speculators, clearly fundamentally, the US dollar should rally against the yuan, but it's not that clear cut at the moment. We haven't heard anything from about the US-China trade tariff situation. There is talk out there that Trump will be looking to potentially suspend it if China do come to the table. So if that happens, you would expect the dollar to sort of drift lower against the yuan. but we'll have to see how that goes. Now, Friday, close of trade, US equities, pretty mixed, if anything, pretty flat to me. Asian equities, the Nikkei on the top edge slightly up, as you'd expect with that move in the Dow Jones. So I don't think we're going to see too much. Now, don't forget, we've got Thanksgiving on Thursday. So once trading finishes Wednesday, it's going to be a very short week. Thursday, US markets will be shut, and there won't be much going on Friday either, I wouldn't think, with that. Dollar index, okay, overall still sideways, but, short-term noise, it looks like it's sort of drifting lower. But if I could bring it back over here, now this is where you understand what's going on with the overall fundamentals. Now, if I just give you a look at the MyFX Trading Hub, we've got a very strange setup. Now, I've slightly adjusted the technical aspect just to give you a bit more dynamic structure of the majors, right? So I've just added an extra inclusion here in between bullish and bearish. I don't want you to think the currencies are going from bullish to bearish day in, day out. Now, we have been at some key levels, and that's confused things somewhat. But the US dollar, to me, at the moment, is sideways. And let me just show you where I'm getting that picture from. So with Richard Clarita, right? So he's a board member. So very important what he says. You've got to think that Jerome Powell's in on the old, get out there and tell them global growth's drifting off a bit. So it takes the pressure off the Fed somewhat. So instead of the Fed being overly hawkish, I've got it sort of back to a neutral stance. So the Fed sentiment neutral. US economic data has been slowly ticking away, if anything, slightly stronger, but not over the top. It's not going to drive it through the roof. The technicals, well, they're sort of just drifting lower at this stage. The daily charts have snapped back into the range, so slightly lower. So you've got this conflicting technicals and sort of fundamental picture. So to me, the US dollar is currently trading sideways, and that's going to make trading a little bit harder to pick. If the US dollar doesn't have direction, right, generally what you'll end up finding is the major pairs will sort of drift around technically. Now, what I've got in here now, you'll see mildly bullish, mildly bearish. Basically, if we've only got the technical aspect working for the currency pair, well then it could still be bullish or bearish, but it's not a strong move. Now, out of all these pairs, the Kiwi has got the strongest potential move here. Now, bullish. Fundamentally, it's strong. The US fundamentals are sideways, and then you've got a bullish technical outlook on the Kiwi as well. So that's, to me, that's bullish, right? Fundamentals and technicals working together. Whereas on the Aussie, the Euro, dollar Swiss and dollar CAD, what we've got is we've got the technicals just turning, okay? With that US dollar going sideways, the dollar index, the dollar Swiss and dollar CAD have broken back into the range. So at this stage, I've got them as mildly bearish. Dollar yen has not sort of broken down on more than one time frame, so that's sort of still sideways. Down on the hourlies, but daily and weekly still sideways. So you've got these mid-levels. So what I want to try and give you the idea is, yeah, these currencies are like the Aussie, for instance. Let me just clear the screen. The Aussie, Euro, okay, they're slowly going up, okay, not massive. They could turn around at any point. Kiwi, very strong sort of up move at the moment. And dollar Swiss and dollar CAD, well, they're sort of just drifting lower. And that's where what's happening there. Dollar yen and the dollar index, to me, both just trading sideways at this point. And the wild one, sterling, Brexit, it is just all over the shop. It's become a bit of a joke in the sense that these articles, some of them aren't even true. It's hard to work out what is true and what isn't true with regards to Brexit, with regards to the UK Parliament and the various articles coming out of the UK Times and any other random newspapers. So to me, it's a little bit too hard to trade at all. All right, there we are with the general sentiment. So it's a little bit different at the moment. So the overall, when you're looking at the general trading conditions, right, I'm still factoring in Brexit, because Brexit, when the news comes out either positive for the UK, sterling rallies, it puts a little bit of pressure on the dollar index on the downside. If it's neutral, if it's bad news, it impacts negatively on the UK, well, then the US dollar rallies. So it's, the US dollar index is caught in between a rock and a hard place at the moment, because the Euro, Aussie, well, not so much the Kiwi, but the CAD and everything else, the general sentiment from those other currencies is pretty neutral. So what we're going from is we're going from a sort of bullish US dollar outlook to a sideways, and that's where trading is getting a little bit disjointed. But look at the upcoming events. Now, don't forget, as I said, Thursday, Thanksgiving. After working in the States, I can tell you, like Wednesday, everyone's getting out of town halfway through Wednesday. You got Thanksgiving Thursday. Then you've got, no one's really coming back to work except the junior guys on Friday. So it's going to be a very short week. You look at the major updates. We do have the Aussie minutes out tomorrow. I don't think we're going to see any changes there, but you want to keep an eye on RBA Governor Lowe speaking. Then you come into the US market on Tuesday. I think there's some housing numbers and building permits. That's going to be worth a look at. Then you've got the Bank of Canada member Wilkins. Now, she is second in charge, so she has moved the market aggressively before. So you want to keep an eye on what she's got there. You come into Wednesday, and this is pretty much going to be it for the major momentum for the US dollar. US durable goods, right? That'll be the key thing to come out there. And then you've come into like Thursday, ECB, the policy meeting accounts. Now, this isn't policy change meetings, but they're trying to keep you up the curve with what the ECB is talking about. This has impacted in the past. Now, the other positive thing, which I forgot to mention about Euro on the charts there, Euro did pop to the top side. There's, the Italians do look like they're going to come to the party and start getting a bit realistic with their budget. That's put a bit of, a bit of a bullish tone under Euro as well. So those media accounts will be important. Then you've got, coming into Friday, you've got the German flash manufacturing numbers. There's also some Eurozone numbers there as well, and the CAD CPI. Now, out of all of those, the CAD CPI is probably the biggest number coming into Friday. So that's probably where a lot of traders in North America will be waiting for. As I said, there probably won't be too much interest with Thanksgiving around the corner, but that's where the momentum shifts will come from these upcoming events. All right, so that's where we are at the moment. So you're coming into Monday, as I said, like it's a bit of a dog's breakfast at the moment. If I just let me just bring you across here back to the charts. I mean, when you're trying to work out where the next best trade is, right? You're looking at let me just get the charts up. You're looking at the overall picture of the major pairs here, right? So at the moment, the daily or the hourly charts, you can get lost in the hourly charts sometimes. That's because there's just so much price action. Look at sterling; it's all over the place. Even dollar CAD, it's been a little bit wild and woolly. One thing, as I always sort of mention, that you can do is if you have your technical charts up, come back to the daily charts, right? There's less noise in your daily charts. And this is where you'll probably see clearer the trends. Now, Euro has snapped back into the range. That's what I'm saying. It's mildly bullish. That's a sort of a bit of a bullish sort of signal that it's come back into the range. Sterling just trading sideways in a massive range there. Like it's 500-point range, 127 and 132. Aussie, it has broken higher, not really convincing. As you can see, the Kiwi has got a much more convincing move to the top side. Dollar yen still sideways in a big range. And this is where dollar Swiss has sort of broken back into the range, as has dollar CAD now. They aren't really flying to the downside, but they have, it's mildly bearish. They have broken back down into that range. And you've got the sort of dollar index doing the same sort of thing, but the fundamentals, the economic data, everything's a little bit mixed here. And this comes back into the Fed potentially managing, their monetary policy via a couple of speeches by a couple of guys there. So that's something that you need to be aware of. That does shift as we go forward. And as I said, you want to keep an eye on the news. Just as we go into this week, we do have a few things that the market is waiting for. Obviously, the discussion around US-China trade tariffs, whether that's going to increase or not. Dollar CAD is a little bit caught up in, oil moving all over the place. But UK Brexit and the Fed officials are the two key events. So Brexit continue to throw in that sort of weird anticipation of what's going to go on. And now, what is the Fed up to? I was going to say, is this really? Are they starting to put out there that global growth is cooling off, which means they'll go back to a neutral stance? It looks that way at the moment. So we're just got to play it out from here. All right, guys, that's it from me. The bit of a long-winded FX market insight there, but I just want to give you a bit of an update on that sort of slight change or update to the FX market insight with the analysis. Don't forget, you click on these charts, you do go through to the detailed analysis. That's probably where you want to have a look at things at this point, because they are a little bit tricky. It's a good educational piece to go through those and have a look at where things, where the activity is coming from. Why is it bullish? Why is it mildly bullish only? All right, guys, that's it from me. We'll catch you later on. Cheerio.